Hello and welcome, everybody. I did not click the overlay button fast enough. I apologize to hide our beautiful faces from you for seconds longer than was absolutely necessary to do so. I hope you all are having a wonderful Monday evening. I mean, it's Monday. You know, what part of a house isn't burning down on a Monday? So we are going to have a great time. We're going to get to some writing sprints, have the usual fantastic discussions that have been curated for us. And in addition to that, we're going to be doing something new. And we're going to be introducing some editing samples. Now, this is kind of leading into what we plan on doing in December, which is helping you guys with your stuff and giving some editing feedback, some live constructive criticism to help you improve your book, improve your storytelling, all of the good things. So we will have and be getting a form created this week. So that way by next week, we'll be ready to actually take submissions from you guys. And then it will be just picked at random. And the very first editing stream that we do in December will be featuring some of your guys' content. So it's going to be a great time. So please feel free to submit your stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're not nearly as vicious as we all appear. Maybe Vincent is. You know, the boyish. Don't let the boyish charm fool you. He's a savage at heart. So we're going to dive right on into our questions. And again, if you guys have any questions, please make sure to head over to the chat and drop them over there. We take questions live during these streams. And if you haven't already, also make sure to go down and hit the little subscribe button and the bell notification icon. So that way you stay up to date with all the fantastic streams and future content that we have coming for you. All right, so today we're going to start it off a little bit differently. We're going to have Zara on deck for the first one. And so deadline writing, how do you go about it when you are exhausted? Because let's face it, it's the end of November. We've all lost our minds at this point. So lead us through it.
Wasn't that a question from last week? I feel like you accidentally might have asked me.
I might have. I just work here, Simona. Why you got to be like a man? All right, fine. Vincent, you savage. We're gonna throw you under the question bus first, since apparently I can't read anymore.
It's my fault. I actually threw you under the bus because I don't want to talk at all. So
hey, I'll take it. I'll take it.
All right.
Get out of jail free card I can get.
All right, that's fine. I see how it is. All right, so Vincent, can you explain the primary role of a revisions editor and why it's essential to have one?
Yes. So if everybody can picture this, you've just had your book put through developmental editing and you've just gotten it back. And you've been told everything wrong about your structure and your major themes and your overall arcs and the overall story, and you're stressed out and you're editing that. And you finally come to a place where you feel good about implementing what the developmental editor has said to you. Great. What's next? This is when you move into the revisions phase. And this is sort of the heart of the overall revisions of your book. And your point person during this period is the revisions editor. And if you're going to look back on your time publishing and think, wow, who was my editor? If somebody asks you, okay, who's your editor? And what do you think about them? I can almost guarantee that like 99% chance the first person you're going to think of is your revisions editor, because this is the person you're in the most close contact with. It's an actual relationship you're building as you're editing. So what's happening is it's in that in-between part between nitpicky editing, which comes later with copy editing. That's all the grammar. That's every minute mistake in every sentence. And then it's not quite as big idea as the developmental editing, which you just went through and hopefully should have a much more solid foundation in. So what the revisions editor does is make sure that the different chapters that you're writing fit the overall structure that you're going for, that the character moments make sense, that the story works on all these different levels. And yeah, they'll correct certain things along the way about sentences or the way that you're speaking or you're writing, I should say. And it's going to fit that overall structure. But their main idea is to craft that book that you've kind of decided upon by yourself with you. And whereas in a lot of other scenarios, you hand off a manuscript to somebody, they read it, they give it back to you with their notes, you implement them. This is a little bit more of a relational process, and you're going to be talking with them and working with them. And at the very least at Newdery Press, your MRE, your marketing and revisions editor, who is your absolute point person, is this role for you while you're writing your book. So it's a great relationship to have. It's your number one relationship that you're leaning on. And this is, in my opinion, I had the most fun with this section of the publishing process, because this is really when you get to hammer home what your book actually is. Let's see it improve by leaps and bounds. You're constantly editing with this person who has a lot of expertise in the field. And it's a really great time. And it's when I would say I felt most like I'm doing what an author does, which is a whole plethora of different things. This is that stereotypical, like, I am being an author, making my book the best it can be. And it's kind of the heart of the whole publishing process, in my opinion, at least. I really enjoyed it. And they are there to make it the best time for you.
I love that. Any other thoughts from you guys just to kind of to go along with that?
I would just be curious among kind of us and anyone else watching, feel free to drop it in the chat too, but do you guys enjoy more of the drafting process, getting that initial first draft out, or do you like heading into December after NaNoWriMo and starting to edit and do revisions?
Drafting. 100% drafting. Because it's not like during the revisions process the creativity stops altogether. That's not at all, because you're adding stuff most likely. So you have to come up with new scenes to sometimes fix the plot if it doesn't work, or add more tender moments if the character development is lackluster. But I would say that just the sheer feeling, that excitement of literally giving birth to a book, shaping a story, that's a high that is very hard to compare to anything else when you're a writer.
Yeah, I would agree. I've been noodling on a couple of things for book 2, and I quickly realized that, like, oh shoot, I haven't even finished the first draft. But as I'm going through this, and because I'm taking my time trying to build it, because I had 4 people purchase my Storyweaver package, so they're getting their characters inserted into my book, which means I have to be even more thoughtful about how I approach it. I realized that some of the intricacies that I had planned aren't actually going to work the same way I thought they were. So it's very possible book 2 is going to end closer to the 100,000 word mark, which was not what I was expecting. And I was just like, oh, crap. But that's the drafting. That's how it goes. I'll write more and then edit it down, but I like the drafting.
That's a very nuanced question, actually. I think generally speaking, I think I'm going to agree and say drafting, but only by a hair, because I really enjoy editing, but especially if it's somebody else's work. Because for me, editing is like polishing diamonds. So I'm like, it's so easy to see the potential and growth in somebody else's writing where you're like, yes, I see how this could be stronger. It makes sense to me and other readers. But when you're looking over your own work, you're like, I had so many ideas. Like, what's going on here? So I think I still enjoy the editing process, but I really love the drafting process because, as everybody else was saying, it's just like sheer creative force. Just like, yes, like I don't have to hold myself accountable to any of this making sense necessarily. I'm just going for it. And then when you're editing, it's sort of like, it's still like polishing a diamond, but the thing is, you're also the diamond under pressure. So it's like it's weird.
That's actually a great lead-in for the question that I had for you, Kyra, which is, when editing, should we focus more on grammar and syntax or fix the plot / the characters first?
Unabashedly, in my opinion, unabashedly, without question, fix the plot and character first. I mean, unless there's like some sort of like grammar thing that you realize later in drafting that you want to go back and be consistent from the beginning, like say your character has like a phrase that they use a lot, but you didn't realize that until the end. Technically, that is a grammar or syntax thing that falls under characterization. But all of that is to say, like, definitely fix the plot / character first, because as Vincent was saying, the grammar and the syntax, while there are definitely more structural elements of that, the nitty gritty gets ironed out in copy editing. And so you want to make sure that you have a profound sense of what your story is about and who your story is about before you worry about these particular nuances of the English language or whatever language you're writing in, to be fair. So I would 100% say plot and character, because the part of the drafting process is sort of whether you are a plotter, a pantser, or a planster, there's always this ever-evolving sense of what is the story about? You're just sort of like hurtling into that and embracing that. When you edit, it's kind of when you realize, yes, now I have to decide. There might have been points where I might have veered off my initial track that I had in my mind, but maybe that's what the story was actually meant to be. And in editing, that's when you get to make those decisions. Whereas grammar and things like that, nitty gritty, important, but not at the outset.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and I'll touch on this more with my question later. It really comes down to it. Like if you're thinking about it from the perspective of like, if you're doing like a rock tumbler, right? You're starting off with the rough concept and then you beat it down. And then slowly over time, after you've beaten off all the crust, then it's really kind of getting down to the polishing work, which is the copy editing, the proofreading, the layout, all that kind of stuff. But I'll touch on that more later. Anybody else have any thoughts before we go into our first editing sample?
Just a little bit. With the revisions process, I definitely on my end lost track of how many drafts I had made. And if I were to apply grammar and syntax editing and copy editing to every single one of those changes on the plot and character scale, my book would have taken me another year. Like genuinely, it would have taken me another year because I lost complete count of drafts. So yeah, I completely agree with you, Kyra.
All right, guys. So we're going to do the first of our editing samples. And these are 150 roughly word sentences that we've kind of pulled out of works that we are currently working on. I took from my short story, The Unseeing. I believe Emily's is from her new high fantasy novel. And then Vincent, I don't recall, but what was yours?
A short story called Power Washer.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So let me get this screen shared here and we will dive right on in because I'm kind of excited about this. All right. Let's hope it. Hey, it did. All right. I'm just going to make this. Wow, that really did not make a difference at all for full screen. Oh, well. Well, you guys don't get to see our beautiful faces, but you guys get to see see the screen. It's all good. I'm going to go ahead and read mine. It'll be this portion right here. I can't make it any bigger. Wow, I spelled that right. Whoopsie. All right, so everything was chaos. A black void replaced Kayla's vision as she walked the streets of Manhattan, and the only thing she could comprehend was the screams. From everywhere around her, cries of alarm rose in unison, followed a split second later by the squealing of tires and crunching metal. Panic filled her veins, and she desperately dove to her right where the wall had been moments before. What the hell is happening? Bodies pushed and pulled against her as she fought to stay upright and avoid getting crushed. Let go of me, she cried, punching and kicking at unseen hands. Several explosions erupted in the distance, and the screams intensified. I can't see. Someone yelled to her right. I can't see. All right, lay it on me, guys. What are your thoughts?
I'm intrigued and I want to know more. Editing wise, the first thing that kind of jumped out to me was that first sentence that starts with a black void. Just to make it a little bit more punchy, since it is, I'm assuming this is like the beginning of the story, because I think this is like what you were writing before. But I would put a period after Manhattan and then start the capitalized, get rid of the and. So it's those two sentences punchy right after each other.
I gotcha.
I concur with that. Another quick thing, an image that stuck out to me. Well, first of all, I'm grabbed right away. Like, usually when something starts off with everything was chaos, it's like, yes, a Genesis. We love to see. So I felt very anchored in that. So that was a great first sentence. But I guess an image that really stood out to me was bodies pushed and pulled against each other. I guess for me, and this is just me being like imagining this in my mind, bodies pushing and pulling kind of has a sense of agency to it. So I'm wondering, like, are the bodies pushing and pulling in a sense that they are controlling the motion, or is it more like involuntary? Is it more like throng-like? Like, I think that's the tension that came to my mind when I imagined the image, because pushing and pulling can either be like it's a crowd and people are all like pressed up against each other, so it feels like a pull in relation to a given direction, but it isn't. It's just like a blob, you know? So I guess that was a moment where I was trying to figure out, is the chaos that the bodies are moving towards something and she doesn't know what it is, or is it that she has no sense of what the direction is at all?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, because at this point, like, literally the entire world has like lost sight. So no one knows what the heck is going on anywhere at any given time. So no, that's great. That's super helpful stuff, because again, like, brain dumping this stuff during Nano, like, sometimes it's just like, what are words? Like, words pretty, right? And that's as far as the thinking on that goes. Awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm hooked, Steven. One thing that popped out to me is that section that says "What the hell is happening?" And I know when you drop things into Quip, sometimes it undoes certain things. I was wondering if you had that indented or if you wanted to leave that unindented, like non-indented.
that is supposed to be italicized.
Or sorry, italicized. Wow. Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah. It's supposed to be italicized because it's the person thinking it, and yeah, Quip is dumb. It removed all the formatting.
Yeah. No, it pops. Everything pops. It's great.
Awesome. Well, I
agree. Totally hooked. I do have a question. It would be more of a, like, maybe not a nitpicking. It feels like nitpicking a little bit because it's awesome. So, like, from a developmental editing point of view, since right at the beginning, I don't have an emotional connection with the girl outright, since you want to point out that the world is collapsing. Do you want, like, was it your intention to describe it from her point of view, or just in general to let the audience know that the world is collapsing?
So the goal is to have it be from her point of view, and the other dialogue around her is basically what she is experiencing / hearing or feeling. Is the main goal that I will be working towards.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's good. It's great.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate your insights and your feedback on that, because this thing is rough. It is rough. So with that being said, I think it's high time we dive into our first video here, or it's not video. Writing sprint. Gosh, I cannot words today, guys. The Mondays. I got a bad case of the Mondays.
Are you okay?
No, we've established this.
You got a bad case of the Mondays.
I'm slightly off, Simona. Slightly off.
Honestly, who can English? That's the real question.
Fewer and fewer.
Who
people.
can English? Remember.
All right, I'm pulling up the writing timer because, again, having the bad case of the Mondays, I can't remember jack so far today. I've literally been having like a notepad next to me all day long to keep track of everything because I just keep derping out.
Well, I feel bad for Jack for being forgotten. Poor thing.
I know, poor Jack.
Poor
I feel
Jack.
bad. Sad Jack.
Poor Jack.
And we got wonderful ads. Guys, for those of you who are watching, I love you that you are putting up with all of this and are, at least my senility, as I slowly just descend into madness. Like, I appreciate you guys putting up with all of this. Okay. I think we're good now. I have the thing. So we're gonna get that up. All of the things. Okay. Here we go, guys. I don't even have my thing for writing open yet. So like this is the level of madness that we have come to for today. I'm gonna start this and then hope to goodness we make it through together. All right, everybody, on your mark, get set, go. Oh boy. All right. Finished our first word sprint. So guys, what you got?
254.
Dang.
Ooh.
218 over here.
Nice.
I have
282.
outdone myself. 318.
Oh,
Oh man. Dang. Man, I
Deadlines
thought
do
I was
wonders
gonna
for
get
you.
it.
Very true.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Well, let us dive into the next set of questions and the next sampling edit before we go into writing sprint number 2. So, Emily, we're going to put you on the spot. How do you go about editing when your book is part of a series?
Very carefully and intentionally. Yeah. So it depends on exactly what type of editing that you're going to be doing. But overall, the biggest thing that you want to shoot for and look for is continuity. So if you're going to do, let's say, a first round edit of content, which is what most of you guys are going to be doing coming off of Nano into December, this is where you're really going to start to flesh out the story itself. And exactly like Kyra said earlier, start to like polish that diamond. It's under there, I promise. But part of that process and where I really see a lot of authors kind of fall through the cracks with is characters in this part. How they interact, react, and speak from book 1 to book 2 needs to have that continuity. It needs to align and it needs to make sense to how you set them up to begin with. They're obviously going to grow and develop like any good character will if you write them properly. But kind of the essence of who you created them to be still needs to be there. Which is hard to like kind of walk someone through because like only you know your character better than anyone else. But if you can go back and you can look at them and you can see, okay, this is who they are, and you find those threads of their character, that needs to be consistent throughout everything. Another thing that I'll see like authors kind of fall through the cracks with in that is rule setting and like world building. So whatever rules you set in place in the first book, those two need to carry on throughout book 2, 3, 4, 5, however many you got planned. So for example, let's say that you wrote a book that involves time travel and you made a rule that contrary to how time travel is usually depicted, that you can't just jump wherever you want willy-nilly. There are rules and things like that in place to kind of prevent you from doing that. If in the next book you break that rule, you better have a really good explanation for why suddenly people can jump wherever they want. So, however, you need to stay organized and keep those different threads of your stories together and in your head, do that. I work up different like character bios and even like an overall plot. I talked earlier about like how I create my outlines, and after I get all those cards in place, I do turn it into more of a static outline. But once you finish that first book in the series, go back to that outline and see what you kept the same and what you changed, and then use that to refer back to as you go forward writing your other books.
Yeah, that continuity piece is huge.
Yeah.
And especially keeping the rules and stuff within that is absolutely essential. Any other thoughts from Zara or Vincent on this one?
I wish. I have yet to write a series, so I'm just learning along with everybody else.
Same.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah,
All
same.
right.
I'm just happy to learn from Emily.
So we'll dive into my question. So, editing hell. How do you structure editing a manuscript when you don't have professional help? Now, this is an interesting one, and one that I will typically beat people with my soapbox on because of the importance of it. So, if you don't have professional help, please, for the love of all that is holy, act like a professional. Don't just be like, well, I send it out to my beta readers and they'll just get it back to me just fine. No. Betas are great helps. Don't get me wrong on this. Like, I'm going to be using betas in a very different way than I've ever used betas before with my upcoming short story series. But they are not trained professionals, and your college professor does not count as an editor. Period. I've talked to a bunch of wonderful people who have just recently gone through college writing courses that taught them absolutely nothing on how to actually write a book. So don't use them as your editor. Act like a professional. If you don't know what kind of editing you need, you're likely going to need a developmental edit to start. What is a developmental edit? This is the first edit you do. Okay, so once you have a completed draft, you look at it and you are only addressing the plot, structure, pacing, character arcs, all of the holes that are going to be in there. That is what you are looking for. You are looking for the inconsistencies in your world building. You're pointing back to what we talked about during Preptober and the 4 C's of world building: creatures, creation, cultures, and conflict. How are all of those coming into play? You're looking at the big picture of the story. You go through that first. That should take you at minimum 4 weeks. Why? Because that's how long it takes a trained professional developmental editor to go through your book and do a full developmental edit. Okay. So developmental editing, you guys don't even know. Speaking as a developmental editor, it is the most expensive form of editing for a reason. You are looking at a huge picture in order to make sure everything that in that book makes sense. And more importantly, if you're writing a series, that you know what the heck is going to happen later on, so that way you can take those consistencies and string them through the rest of your novels. Because if you don't, if you skip this, you fudge up the whole thing. Now, I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who'll be like, well, I did it and my book just fell just fine. And yeah, some people get lucky. They do. They have it enough cobbled together and they used enough plaster and toothpaste to fill in the holes where a reader's like, yeah, that could kind of make sense. And then they move on with their life. But if you're wanting to do it and take yourself seriously, you start with a developmental edit and you take your time and you focus on those things. Okay, you focusing on the big picture. Now, when you get to copy editing, and trying to figure out some of those things, then you're going to be looking at using tools like Grammarly or Pro Writing Aid or Hemingway or things of that nature, and that's going to help absolutely. In any case, I'm always going to advocate that you get a professional to help you with it. Period. End of story. I'm a developmental editor, and guess what? I pay for developmental editing because I'm too close to my stories. That's the point, is you get writing blindness. So you can absolutely do a lot of this work yourself. I know there are a lot of amazing self-published authors who have done all of the things themselves. But here's the thing. They've learned over years how to do it and how to perfect what it is that they do. Okay. But it still does not excuse not using a professional. Okay. It means that you can get by. That's what that means. So if you don't have any professional help with editing at all, find a newer editor who has lower rates, right? Who can give you some introductory rates. It is a very common thing. Ask them questions, have them do a free sample, all of that good stuff. These things are, we as editors, we understand this. We expect to have a reasonable amount of words done for free to give you a taste of how it is that we work, right? So, you know, utilize all of the assets that you have. Utilize Microsoft Word if you're able to, or the there's an open source version of Word. I'm blanking on the name of it. Grammarly, utilize the free version of Grammarly. Honestly, the paid version is not worth it. Utilize the free version of Grammarly. The paid version of Pro Writing Aid is absolutely something that I recommend. I use it all the time for my writing. Every single time it's open, whether it be Word or Atticus, because I just got that. One of those two programs is working. I use them all the time. It is helping me create a better first draft, and then it'll help me create a second draft that is more grammatically better. And then I will pass it off to a copy editor and a line editor who knows how to do it, because I has not the gooder grammar. So just know what your weaknesses are and know where you need to do it. But seriously, first and foremost, you need to do a developmental edit. Take no less than 4 weeks. Honestly, if you are going to take this advice and actually decide to do a developmental edit, take 30 days off and don't even look at it. Don't think about it. Don't hand it to your grandma's best friend, or ship it to your grandma's best friend who lives in like the other side of the states or the world. And then in 30 days, ask them to ship it back to you. So that way you're not pulling a Gandalf and be like, don't tempt me, Frodo. You want it as off of your mind as humanly possible, because you have to come at it with an analytical mindset, not so much from the creative mindset. You have to approach it that way in order to do it most effectively. A lot of people can still do it. It's just not as effective, because the creativity side and the analytical side, they don't play well when doing the developmental edits specifically. Any other thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah,
would
completely.
agree with what Steven said. If you're going to spend money anywhere, one of those things you're going to want to spend money on is your developmental edit.
I concur with all these statements. And honestly, this is one of those topics that as a writer drive me crazy, because the way people approach editing, it kind of says a lot about how the way that art is like generally undervalued in our world. Because if you want to refurbish your kitchen, you're going to call a professional and call a contractor, and you're not going to do it yourself unless you can do it. But when it comes to art or writing, suddenly people can do everything. And it's just, it kind of, the argument that I can't afford professional help kind of goes out the window for me as well, because the same applies. Like, if you can't afford to refurbish your kitchen, then you save some money and then you will do it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, please use an editor, use professional help. You need a fresh set of eyes on your work, people that know what they are doing, if you want your book to be the best version it can be.
Yeah, going off of that, I spent 7 years before finding my publisher, New Degree Press. And if I had only taken this advice at any point in any of those years, my life would have been so much easier, because I was way too close to what I was writing, and I had too high of an opinion of myself as a writer. And obviously I was an adolescent, so it's understandable, but nonetheless, if I would have taken that advice and gotten a developmental editor on the side at any of those points, my book would have been able to catapult to the next phase and go into revisions editing and be accepted and respected on a different level by both me and everybody reading it if I had taken the time to seek out that help. So I completely agree with that. Painful advice, but great advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing to take into consideration when you guys are looking for an editor, because I do understand like is super, super expensive. Developmental edit at a market rate of what most editors are going to do, which is 2 cents per word in large part. Like you can verify this on Readsy. That's what it shows up there. That's what I was charging for people. And you're looking at an 80,000 word novel, about $1,600. That's not inexpensive. And many people, they'll go to Fiverr or something like that. And I get it. I started off on Fiverr. However, I feel like I had a better work ethic than most of the people on Fiverr. And don't undercut yourself.
Because we know you and we know Fiverr.
Right. Yeah. And the thing to keep in mind is that a good editor, when you're looking for an editor, a good developmental editor is not going to tear your book to shreds. That is actually a very common misconception. I've had people who are just like, just take it and just do it. And I'm like, that's not actually what editing is. Like it doesn't serve me any to tear your book apart. What my job is as an editor is to actually help you build it better. And that means that, yeah, we'll have to deconstruct some of this stuff. We'll have to tear down some of the bigger issues. But my goal is to teach you how to do better with your story, to make it as good as it possibly can be. That is what a good developmental editor is going to do for you. Honestly, any editor should do for you. And if you get a sample back from them and they're not doing that, you have my full permission to yeet them off the list and get rid of them. Okay. And if you guys have questions or if you need referrals, I have a group of editors that I run on Facebook that has like 500 editors in it. I'm more than happy to try and help you get connected to something. Like, that is what we do here. We try and help you. So I will get off that soapbox because I don't want to beat anybody with it for too much longer. I'm sure you guys have already taken a beating. So we are coming up here on the last like 5 minutes or so. So we're probably only going to get just the one writing sprint in. But we do have time to kind of run through 2 more of our editing samples to give you guys a taste of what is going to be coming up in December and what you guys have to look forward to if you so choose, and if you would like feedback from a developmental editor and our fellow author coaches. So let me get that screen pulled up here. This is the downside of having like 1,800 tabs open at any given time. Hey, there we go. All right, let's scroll up here to Emily, and it's going to be this section right here for you guys. I'm not able to really expand this or make it any bigger. Emily, are you able to read that off for us?
Sure. Let me just get really close to my screen.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Oh, technology, how we love you.
All right. From here, Tamrin could see the full Moroi stretching out before her like an unfolded map. Her fingers found her lips as the taste of salt settled heavy on her tongue. It wasn't uncommon for the city to wear the scent of brine like cheap perfume, but tonight it coated the inside of her mouth in a way more akin to gargling with seawater, leaving her parched with a thirst she wasn't sure she'd be able to quench. She watched the dark waves of the Obsidian Sea break several miles offshore as they passed over the coral reefs surrounding the city. Moonlight glinted off something in the bay, and if she was still and silent enough, Tamrin could swear she heard a haunting melody rise from the water. Her mind flooded with stories of sirens and sea monsters, folklore and fables from a home she hadn't set foot on in years. But despite the time and distance from her beloved Elsian's shore, she could still recall the tales her grandmother used to lull her to sleep with as a child. She shook the memories away, hoping it was a siren's song she heard. The alternative was not a thought she welcomed, nor would the king and queen if they found out their soon-to-be daughter-in-law was hearing voices.
Ooh.
Ooh, burn the witch.
I like that.
Awesome. I like it.
That's
First of all,
great.
this will be kind of like completely off the hook question, but Tamarin is such an interesting name. Like, how did you come up with that? Is that is that Irish? Does that have to do with an Irish folklore?
I don't know what the origin is, but I love really off-kilter names, just in general. So, yeah. So it was. I have
Sounds
a
very well
long list of off-kilter names.
Irish.
And it was a good one.
Sounds great. Yeah, sounds very folklorish, Welsh/Irish. I like it.
Thank you.
I like the descriptions. You know, stretching out before her like an unfolded map. The taste of seawater. I like that, you know, she's not sure whether she is actually hearing a song, and that it raises a question in my mind. And this is something that actually, but before I say anything, where is this part in the book, Emily, in your new work?
It's probably a third of the way in like 1,000-word chapter.
Okay, and is it chapter 1 or like one of chapter 1? Okay,
yeah.
So this to me is absolute perfection, and I love when authors do this. This is what sells books, guys. In my opinion, this is what sells books. You pique the reader's curiosity. So Emily has done a wonderful job of filling out this world in our minds. It's very descriptive. And then, you know, she's recalling tales from her childhood, but she shook it away, and
Emotional connection.
It's a siren song because, and like a siren song in most folklore is like doom, but there's a worse alternative. And now I want to know what that worse alternative is. So this is one of the best examples of when you can grab somebody. You don't sell most readers on a word count length, on a chapter count, on an introduction. What typically, based on all the readers that I have talked to, will sell a book is if you can grab them within the first 10 pages of the story. And if this is a third of the way through a 1,000-word chapter, then this is set up perfectly to grab the reader's attention, and they're going to go, well, shoot, I have to find out what this alternative is, because if I know anything about mermaids, they are not like Ariel, and it's bad news. So like, this is awesome. I love this.
Yeah, I also love, Emily, how my interest is piqued about how real are these sea monsters or these sirens, because I'm reading it and kind of questioning, do they actually exist in this world, or are these just stories that she's heard about? And I want to keep reading to find out how much fantasy is in this book at the moment. You know, in the first chapter, it's great.
Yeah. I love that, because I was intentionally trying to do that.
I love the emotional connection that you created between your protagonist, your heroine, and the reader. As someone who, you know, because this appeals to a large audience, you know what I mean? I don't have to be a fan of high fantasy or fantasy in general in order to love this character, because you already made my interest peak, and I want to know what's going to happen to her. Like, I don't even know, is she a siren? Is she kind of like one of the monsters? I don't know. She may be, right? But you made me care about her by bringing me into her childhood, bringing me into her mind, and that's something that everybody can relate with, regardless of genre. So
Mm.
that's one of that's another great point. Um, kind of writing a book that transcends genres, which is a very hard thing to do. You're writing characters, you're writing your audience is ultimately human, so your characters have to be human as well.
Yeah.
Great job, Emily.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Love it. All right, and now we are going to go to Vincent's down here.
You sure you don't want to end on a high note with Emily's?
No, Vincent, we're gonna do yours as well.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, don't be afraid. You'll be
good old
fine.
self-deprecating.
If I can get it to center, I swear to goodness, quit. All right, Vincent, take us there. Read it off.
All right. The better pressure of Hank's power washer is apparent from the get-go. Mine is a 13-year-old purchase, collecting dust in the backyard mini shack between each use. Today marks one such overly difficult unearthing of the tool, a deep dig past the lawnmower, rake, and storage cabinets. The front driveway needs to be freed of the pollen strands which have been inevitably polarized by tire into a powder over the cobblestone. Once the strands are freed and the powder cleared, I can then clean the backyard concrete around the pool before Thursday's showing. Hank spots me a third through the wash. That's not a bad piece of hardware, he says, but it's definitely suffered from lack of use there, bud. The firm-faced handyman had parked his pickup in front of my for sale sign, but he approached me without a mention of it. Hank is far more transfixed by the gargantuan task at hand. You could still do for a stronger engine, though, to get the job done faster.
I don't know who Hank is, but I like Hank. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I love the descriptions.
Yeah.
Like at first I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know why we're talking about a pressure washer or a power washer. But the descriptions, like it just slowly like pulled me in more and more of just like, it just very visceral, pulverize the pollen into the cobblestone, from the tires and stuff. Like I really like that. I think it's good. I think if I had a critique, it would be that I don't necessarily like the split in the sentence. That's not a bad piece of hardware. But again, like first person, just full disclosure, is not my favorite tense use anyway. And to me, like there are very particular ways that you have to phrase things in order for it to flow. And it's different than how it works in a third person narrative. So that to me would probably be my only critique on this one, is that finding some way to rework it and combine it.
Gotcha.
It also doesn't necessarily need the dialogue tag of he says, because we realize that you've shifted perspective to Hank, and Hank is approaching. So you could actually remove the dialogue tag altogether, because it's already apparent that Hank is going to be the one speaking next.
Gotcha.
So that would be the only thing that I would add.
Thank you.
Yeah, kind of going off of what Steven said, you can tell that you were very intentional about word choice. And I like the pacing that it creates, if that makes sense. In the spots where you could have like drawn it out and used more words, that would have messed with that. But I like the intentionality of kind of closing that gap, and using very like actionable words like pulverized. Different things like that also help to kind of like keep that pacing consistent and like draw us in immediately.
Thanks. That's good to hear, because it is kind of a boring overall concept
what I
first?
I was gonna say actually that it doesn't sound boring to me at all. Like I pictured right away, like you were very intentional about the vibe that it gives off. Rural setting, men hard at work, and since I love character-driven books, it doesn't bother me at all that it's from the first person point of view. It actually adds to it. This feels like a very character-driven short story. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. Some things come up later where it's all about him and his inner thoughts.
Yeah, this sounds like Waiting for Godot in some way, but in like Iowa. So I like it.
Thank you.
I love that. In Iowa. Just pick the most obscure and like vacant state and just like throw Hank in, whoever this guy is, in there with a pressure washer, and then you have an instant story on your hands. I love it.
Yeah, he's in his head and he's thinking about the meaning of life, and I just love character driven stories like that. And he's probably have this countryside crisis on his hands, and his pickup fell apart and his wife left him, and it's just I love it.
Actually,
It's great.
yes.
I tell right away that's the vibe that Vincent is going like this rural,
You literally nailed it.
work,
That's what it's about. Yeah, I'll leave his you literally spotted it a mile ahead. That's what it's all leading to. Wow. Zara, you are an author.
Yeah, because you did a wonderful job. You did a wonderful job in just the short paragraph, like to convey the emotion and all of that. So see, it's working. Keep on doing what you're doing. It's working.
Good to hear.
Oh man, good stuff. And this is why we love doing the streams and the author coaching stuff, guys. This is why we do what we do. So this week we are going to again be getting that form up and running for you guys, and it will be available if possible. I'm going to try and get it up by tomorrow's live stream, so that way we have it up and ready, and then you guys can start submitting ASAP. So that way by next Monday, which I can hardly believe next Monday we're already in December. Like,
yeah,
how?
Insane.
Yeah, I can't believe it. And then before we know it, we're going to be into the new year. So, and don't forget, guys, that there is the opportunity to actually submit your manuscript to New Degree Press in February if you so chose. So this whole process that we're kind of going through right now is, preparing to write a book, writing a book, editing your book, applying the edits, and then really, if that's something that you are wanting to do, then you can look at submitting to New Degree Press and getting it published. So, and if you have any questions about that, our emails are down below, media@manuscripts.com or community@manuscripts.com. We're happy to help discuss that with you guys. NDP is basically the imprint under Manuscripts. I don't think I mentioned that last time. Remembering this time. So keep an eye out, guys, for that link. It should be ready. I will have it ready by tomorrow. Let's just put it that way. I will have it ready by tomorrow. You guys can submit probably roughly the same amount of words, about 150 words. And we will give live critique, live feedback next Monday when we start our stuff. And we'll be doing the editing sprints, which if you guys have never done that, obviously you're not going for word count as much as you are just like, hey, this is time to set aside to actually edit your freaking book and stop procrastinating on it. Because here's the thing. Our goal is to move you from aspiring author to author, actually published author, because you don't want to keep aspiring by your name forever. Let's face it. So, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Comment down below. We're always happy to take your questions. Message us on basically all the forms of social media because you're going to find one of us somewhere. I guarantee you that much.
Yeah.
And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Monday night. We will see you tomorrow for the final day of Nano. I hope to finish at least the 10,000 words that I was trying to aim for out of the 40. So that is the goal, guys. We are going to go for it. We love you all, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Tomorrow, not next week, tomorrow next week too, but specifically tomorrow. We'll see you then, guys. Take care.
Tomorrow.